check, everyone. Everyone is live.
Live.
We all live.
Content. Gotta turn on that, what's it called? I am not live on my side.
And you know?
No, it's not popping up yet. I don't know what's going on. Now we are. Now we're live. We're going. It's a bit slow this morning. I'll just quickly update everything. Chat. And then clans.
Is it studio I have to go to?
Train studio. Yeah. I think so. I'll just agree with what you're saying. Content, because I go to content and then YouTube studio, and then go to content, and then click the where it says no. Click yes. I think that's how it works.
Hello. Good evening. Oh no, that's not right. That's not the right one. It's not. I can't find it. Content. Oh right, yes, there we go. And then lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoop.
Who you keeping by? Any news? Myself and Mihal are just setting up the what was it called? Monetization and stuff now.
Yeah, because I'm gonna let you do it when you go live.
I always have to do it when I go on live. Make sure I get paid. Have you been keeping up with the old Crusader Kings 3, Mihal? How's Kevin, boy?
No, another episode of Michael's audio problems. Oh God! Don't say that.
Mihal. Is Mihal having audio problems? Can you hear Mihal fine? Can you? Or is there actually problems with his?
It's coming up a screen when I talk. How are you doing, Kevin? How do I get this view profile?
Oh, come on. Large. The Quakers are behind all the nonsense. It's the Quakers. It's not a group of everyone else wants to blame. It's the Quakers. Why did you say it's the Quakers? Tell me about the Quakers. Why are the Quakers so bad?
I seen a TikTok earlier about modern American politics and Quakers and Puritans as they were coming into America and how that's affected modern politics. But is that any reference to that? I don't know.
Because the Quakers don't start popping up until the early modern, so it's all outside my field of expertise. Thank God. In fact, all this kind of mad stuff that's going on right now, way out of my field of expertise. Thank God.
Yeah.
Although at the same time, God, there's a massive lack of actual business channels. What I find very annoying these days, if you want to know anything about what's happening right now, and you click on business or anything, all you're bombarded with is these scams off the Manospheres. You know, the amount of Manosphere scams they're trying to promote. What are they called again? Pyramid schemes. They're trying to promote pyramid schemes. You got these young fellas, they're go-getters who can't even afford to wear a watch. They can't afford to wear a watch, right? And they're like, I know to make $10 billion. You're all idiots and blah, 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 right? And they talk about how women are stupid and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, this is how you make $10,000. You have to go to my private school on Discord where I'll teach you how to make $10,000. And then they'll like slowly but surely scam you into jumping onto their pyramid scheme where you give them money and then you give some other guy money and blah, blah, blah. And yet they don't have a clue how the modern economy works whatsoever. In fact, it's actually quite difficult to find a blasted channel or anything that actually explains how business works. Do you know? Are you finding that at all, no?
I worked in banking for years, so
Yeah.
don't listen to any of that nonsense.
Yeah, yeah,
I was behind the
exactly.
curtain. BlackRock was one of my clients, for goodness sake. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, Hayden with Cliff Mac, Scots-Irish for you. Anyone who's followed my channel for a while knows I have a problem with the term Scots-Irish. Um,
Mm,
it's I not a problem per se. I think it pertains to a very small group of individuals who are from North Antrim under the MacDonalds in the 15th, 14th, 15th century would probably get the
mm,
term Scots-Irish. But a lot of people who came across with the plantations of Ulster and then moved on to the Americas within about 2 or 3 generations um, still use that term. And I wouldn't apply that term to them because they would have little to no Irish in them at all, as most of the
mm,
planters would have married locally. Uh, there are obviously exceptions, and it's a very
yeah,
generalized term. But it just gives me, and I have no problem people using it, but I just get a bit of a
yeah.
twitch in my eye when people refer to themselves as Scots Irish,
Mm,
and like I say, the family were only in Ireland for 2 generations at best, and
mm.
not involved in like never got involved with the Irish side of Ireland. Um, Michael is thinking,
uh,
is Philip talking about us? um, there was there was also another group called the Shakers, the Quakers and the Shakers.
the Quakers and the Shakers. I don't know what was it called.
Sounds
Are
like an
you in with
Ulster
the?
accent and a Cork accent. Yes, yes, that is true. The far superior Ulsterman and the just court guy there. How you doing,
uh,
Cat? What were you talking? I seen there. Oh, Kevin, I've been really interested in the period between 1066 and 1215 recently, and I've been loving the Third Crusades. Um, I mean,
I can't see that
I
one.
always find it interesting. It's pinged up on the screen. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, I see it now.
uh,
1066 to 1250. That's a good era, though.
when isn't a good era really? But no, the
Yeah.
obviously you've got the end of the Viking Age, for that in inverted commas. Um, you've got the Norman invasion of Ireland. It's a good period. You
Mm,
start to see some really big changes. I'll tell you one thing. I was apparently I've never researched into it. William the Conqueror is not really someone I'm like interested in, but
what is that?
his I just think he has such a negligible impact on Ireland compared to later kings that it's just he sort
Mm,
of ends up on the periphery of my research. And
mm,
obviously, most Irish surnames sort of are starting to form around this period. So I'm more
mm.
interested in them than I know actually what he's up to. Um, but apparently, he had interests in Ireland, in invading Ireland. I don't know if you know anything about
William the
that.
Conqueror. God, he'd
Mm,
find it very difficult during his period because that's just when Turlough Breen takes back over, and then it goes back into Murtagh Breen. So William the Conqueror trying to take over Ireland would be quite difficult at that point, because the fact that military wise, because the what was it, the Norway, which was also in a better predicament, what was it called, tried invading Ireland in around 1103, and those lads were beaten back as well. What was it,
mm,
Magnus Barelegs? He tried multiple times to invade Ireland, ends up having a marriage alliance with Murtagh Brain, who was also trying to centralize Ireland. But you guys would be delighted about this, but it was the Toot up in, what was it called? Sorry, the Toot up in the north that managed to actually push back both the recognised King of Ireland at the time, Murtagh Brain, who was recognised by the papacy, Norway, and Scotland as the King of Ireland. Funny enough, Scotland actually recognised Murtagh Brain as King of Ireland with a gift of a camel, which is an interesting gift to recognize somebody as a king. And that was given from the Crusades. So the Scottish managed to get a hold of a camel with the Crusades, and then they gave it as a gift over to Murtagh Ibrahim to recognize him as King of Ireland. But regardless, Murtagh Ibrahim wanted to push up to subjugate what was left of the Ionel with the MacLachlan's and the Ullid. And the Ullid actually betrayed Murtagh Ibrahim because they were writing letters to Murtagh Ibrahim, recognizing him as the re-Éireann of Ireland. And yet, when he marched up north to subjugate the MacLachlan's, the Ullid were standing with the MacLachlan's, refusing to pay their tribute to Murtagh Ibrahim. And so Murtagh Ibrahim at the time, he had a marriage alliance with the King of Norway, who originally, when he was going to Ireland, was trying to subjugate Ireland for himself. But between the jigs and the reels and a whole load of negotiating, what ended up happening was that the King of Norway ends up recognizing Murtagh Ibrahim as King of Ireland, and then they had a marriage alliance, but they still needed to subjugate the north of Ireland. So the two of them put their military forces together, went up north, and between the jigs and the reels, when the Norwegians landed into the Ullid territory, the Ullid managed to have a surprise attack on Magnus Barelegs and ends up killing him in the process. And because he died during the battle, the rest of the military force ends up freaking out and dispersing into the sea again. And Murtagh Ibrahim, his military force, didn't have the same push or drive because the the Norwegians didn't have that stable ground to start with. So the whole invasion ends up completely collapsing. And so the Ullid and the Ionel were once again continued being independent, and they didn't have a complete unification that Brian Boru had much more early on, when Brian Boru was pushing for a unified Ireland in 1002. So there you go.
Yeah.
Ulster saying
attack.
no once again.
Well, it's how we like it. Sneak attack. Yeah, this is a few hundred years after Brian Boru. Brian Boru dies in 1014. So it's a few decades after. Did Brian Boru establish the conditions for leaders to control an Ireland-wide bureaucracy? The conditions were always there. In the idea of, there was an idea of a high kingship. Whether people were able to take that high kingship, many did try. Flanshiner is a great example of another unifier. We'll put him in the section. We'll put him in the section
He's
of great
father
unifiers.
before that.
Yeah.
But what was it called? His father, before that. Go on.
Yeah. And his grandson or great grandson, Mael Shocknall, as well. So, so the idea, the concept of this a high kingship existed. Whether, like I say, whether people were able to establish it or actually enact it is a different discussion altogether. So the bureaucracy was already there. What Brian Boru did really was upset the natural order of succession and the way that it was viewed before kingship had it was who had the biggest stick, but it was very limited to a very small elite class, people related to specific groupings within Irish history. And Brian Boru completely turned that upside down by being this outsider warlord who goes on to do this thing. So he reminds me of I would like to compare him to Oda Nobunaga, the Japanese unifier, who came from a peasant family and managed to unify Japan. I like to compare those two together. There are obviously vast differences, but it's just whenever I'm relating to them, his story mirrors Oda's in such a way that I like to compare the two.
For sure.
Do you disagree, Philip?
I say, do you disagree? It It was, what was it called? Maynooth University a few months back actually highlighted that as well. Exactly what you were saying there is that you did already have a few individuals beforehand that went about Ireland collecting the cattle tribute. It's also interesting to note that before Mael Shocknall, a lot of these overkings were recognizing themselves as overkings of the Gael. But what was it called? Mael Shocknall is the first one to recognize himself as the overking of the Erin of all of Ireland, which is very, very interesting that he doesn't just see himself as overking of the Gael alone, but also of the Gaul Gael, of the Norse, pretty much everybody on the island of Ireland. So that's very interesting in the usage of Irish in around 840 is the fact that Mael Shocknall I does recognize himself as a re-Erin, a king of anyone on the island of Ireland. Brian Boru was also very interesting as well in the fact that he's the first one to recognize himself as more of a centralized figure, not just in Ireland, but in Scotland as well. If we look at the Book of Armagh, for example, in it, Brian Boru does not recognize himself as a re-Erin or a Ardri, anything like that. A lot of people turn around and say that he was the first one to recognize himself as an Ardri. It doesn't say that in the Book of Armagh. It says Emperor of the Scots, which is insanely interesting that he recognizes himself more as a Charlemagne centralized figure. Even in the fact that he goes to Armagh and writes it in the Book of Armagh. And that's very interesting in itself because at the time, Armagh was pushing for a centralized reform of the church. Armagh at the time was fighting against the law of St. Columba. So basically, at the very start of the Viking Age, there's a civil war happening in Ireland between, what was it called? Derry and Columba. Sorry, Iona and Columba. Was it Iona and Derry at the time were pushing for the law of St. Columba, which meant that Ireland would continue to be decentralized and every single monastic settlement would collect their own tribute. But Armagh was pushing for the law of St. Patrick. What is the law of St. Patrick? The law of St. Patrick was a centralized law where Armagh wouldn't just collect up all of the centralized tribute of the monastic settlements to Armagh, but also on top of that, everyone would follow the same laws as Armagh, and Armagh itself would literally be governed by Rome. So whatever Rome was doing, Armagh would fully agree with. Of course, many monastic settlements in Ireland completely disagree with this. So while most people, especially within the pop history world, would pay attention to the Viking Age and pay attention to the fighting that's happening in the coastal areas of Ireland, because it's the most entertaining. Because, here comes the Vikings burning the coastal area of Ireland. Most academics would actually prefer to focus on the fighting that's happening within this civil war, which is the law of St. Patrick versus the law of St. Columba, because that's the more entertaining and more interesting fighting is the internal fighting between, Northern Inel and Southern Inel, because they themselves don't give a rat's ass. They actually switch between the various monastic settlements and take favour within Armagh. But at the same time, Munster also jumps in and also supports Armagh as well throughout the fighting, because you see the rise of Philmiv MacMurrough-Kavanagh at the same time at the very start of the Viking Age as well. The King of Munster, as he goes in and takes the high kingship of Ireland as well.
Yeah,
so it's very interesting.
Exactly. If you go on, no, he's asking for sources for some of this. If you go on my video on YouTube, which clans fought at the Battle of Clontarf, in the description, you don't have to watch the video, but it is a nice plug-in if you do. I have a list of the sources used in that, and they're all free. They're all free sources used. And I never list the paying ones because I want people to go back and be able to read it themselves. So there's a load of sources in the description. This one's just probably more from me, but I'll you might be able to chime in. I thought you said you were getting a drink as well, or did you get one?
I've got it right here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You see me spanning up to get a drink, no?
No, I just heard you waffling. Yeah. So are the three colors mythical or historical or a bit of both? It's a bit of both, and that can really be applied to anything, really. If you're based on the sources, it is both mythical and historical. There are specific romantic sagas written about them, and they're obviously, like a lot of our literature, medieval literature, it's regarded, especially by modern scholars, as like political fabrication, so you've got the sort of the mythological and the political legend. So according to like the ancient annals and some like pseudo histories, like the three colors are these sort of three powerful warrior brothers who, in like the 4th century, invade Ulster and destroy Oamaha, and they found the kingdom of Archela. And these, and then you've got like there's sometimes the three colors are actually seen as literary doublets of the aliases of the three sons of Niall Nogalach. So you've got Connell, Owen, and Enda. And it's actually what some people believe it may be a mirror of the Aeneal's 5th century conquest of Archela instead of the 4th century. So yeah, it is a bit of a mix of the three, of the two, mythical, historical, bit of political propaganda. I do believe though that there is some DNA things that are coming out. So you've got like groups like the MacDonalds, the McMahons, the Boylans, the Duffys, the Maguires, and they're finding like genetic clusters within these groups to sort of support a kin-based society, a kin group within Archela that sort of replicates almost like the Niall Nogalach gene, which is where we can specify that there was someone who lived in the northwest of Ireland 1,500 years ago, who is the male ancestor for a lot of people within the Aeneal, what we would consider the Aeneal territory. So people call it the Niall Nogalach genetic marker, even though we have no way of proving that it is Niall's genetic marker. Something similar is happening within the kingdom of Archela, where we can see these clusters within the MacDonalds, within the McMahons, within the Maguires, within this specific time frame that sort of backs up the claim. So, but a lot of what's written about the three colors is political myth fabricated in the 8th century. So that's the problem we have. That we have this layer of history that is then politically massaged and sometimes conflated with other historical events that happen centuries after. So yeah, it's a bit of both. I hope that
Caveman, I fully 100% agree with what you're saying there, but will you have a look at Collins' work? I think his page, give us a very, very quick second there. But Collins' work actually undermines this whole argument that the Vikings came to Ireland and that the Vikings had superior weapons. When you look at the archaeological evidence, the Irish actually had superior weapons than the Norwegians, because the Irish at the time, at the very start of the Viking Age, were armed by Charlemagne's court. So Ireland, as they call it, Celtic Charlemagne finds in Ireland proved that the Irish actually had superior spears, they had superior swords. So it's a complete myth that the Vikings came and that the Vikings had better weapons than the Irish. when the Irish were fully kitted out. Like the Vikings were farmers. When they came to Ireland at the very start, the majority of them were farmers. And these Viking farmers were fighting against fully equipped Irish king's war bands who were kitted out with the latest Charlemagne equipment. Because as you guys should all know, the Irish went into Europe and allegedly saved Europe, as the name of the book is called. What was it? How the Irish Saved Europe. But with that, at the time, Ireland has a very healthy relationship with Charlemagne's court. And because of that, then you have trade of equipment going from France over to Ireland at the time. So it is a myth that the Vikings have superior weapons going over to Ireland, especially when they're farmers. What the Vikings have and what sparks a lot of this argument to start with is axes. The Vikings are using axes, and straight away the Irish take note of it. And if you read the Annals of Ulster, you can see how the Irish really love these axes and how the Viking farmers are using the axes against them. The following season, when the Vikings return, the Irish are now using axes as well in their formations. So the Irish are forming up and they're having Dane axes, they're having singular axes. So the Irish very quickly adapt to the usage of axes in their, shield line. Colin's page, if you actually go onto my YouTube channel, Irish Medieval History, and you scroll down to the bottom, and you see what is it called, where I have everybody's pages at the bottom, almost at the bottom. If you scroll across, you can go to Arturian Historian, and if you click on to Collins's channel, which is called Arturian Historian, somewhere on his page he actually has that discussion. Yeah, he does. It's called "What Have the Vikings Ever Done for Us?" Presentation from the Celtic Students Conference. If you click on that one, he goes into detail about the weapons the Irish had at the very start of the Viking Age, and he points out all the archaeological finds, which at the time are referred to as Celtic Charlemagne finds in Ireland, which is something that's completely ignored. Michal, you look like you want to say something.
No, it was someone was asking there about maybe there were new dominant lineages that created myth as there were sort of new nobility looking to be old and establishing nobility, and that's every single one of them, every single group. I think the only group that has a slight has not who's it archaeologist Cormac McSporran says the Dalfeator are the only group that sort of show no real massaging of their genealogy. So you have like Congal Clean of the 7th century king who died at the Battle of Moira in 637. He is later attributed the name Congal Maha because he tries to link his genealogy lineage to these ancient groups that sort of ruled from Owen Maha. You've got the Brian Boru. His family tried to associate themselves with the Ornocta, so they edit the genealogy rather than being from the Dacia. They say that they're from the Ornocta. You have the Christian groups, the Dal Naraja. They try to edit their genealogy to say they're part of the Enil when the Enil expansion starts to happen. There's a lot of it. The O'Rourke's have completely edited their genealogy to a point we actually don't know who they're related to. We know they edited it. We see the marks, but they've edited it, and that they're not part of the Ebreen, but they say they are, and we have no idea who they're related to. I suppose genetics will expand on that more, but in a written aspect, from the genealogical aspect, we have no idea.
Crusader Kings Tree. Yeah, Crusader Kings Tree had a chapter announcement. Sorry, they have a chapter 5 announcement, which is happening in the next, 40 hours. They're having, they're going to announce a chapter 5 announcement. hopefully we're gonna. It's all in green and stuff as well, so I'm hoping it's a big, massive Irish DLC for the year. For the whole year, they just talk about Ireland. Wouldn't that be great? Um, who do you like to play as in Ireland? I'm completely biased, so I always click what was it called, Munster, to play as. I assume, Michal, you're also biased and you just keep clicking the OLED, do you? Or the email?
Yeah, no. I have a problem with Crusader Kings. I can't really play in
Mm.
Ireland. Um, One, the borders annoy me. That there's too
Yeah.
few tours in Ireland. Um, the
Mm.
sub kings are non-existent, and the family trees
Yeah.
are woeful. So
Yeah.
knowing all that, I can't play as them. So I actually don't play as Ireland at all, um,
Yeah.
because it irks me too much.
Oh, it's absolutely diabolical. Like the problem is every single person that tries to do Ireland or depict Ireland, pretty much in every form of media, has absolutely no idea about Ireland whatsoever. They're completely clueless. They have no clue about the Tuat system. They have no clue how king groups work. And they always depict Ireland as this sort of backwards Iron Age Ireland. And you find that with everyone. Everyone has this depiction of Ireland in the Iron Age. All these big tribal groups. Like every time they like depict what was it called, Ireland, and everything is medieval. And I'm going to have a rant this week as well because there's someone else, a big historian on social media. He did a depiction of Ireland, and he was just talking about Iron Age Ireland, and I'm like, Iron Age Ireland is not medieval Ireland at all. I think people look at the ring forts and everything and think to themselves, "Oh, well, that must be how Ireland functioned in the medieval period." And they keep like waffling and waffling and waffling about the tribe system in Ireland during the Iron Age, when that's not how Ireland functioned. It functioned as king groups in Ireland, which is, at the very top, everyone has their own clan, but the clans are then tied into each other through marriage alliances, fosterage, and also taking hostages. So that ties all of the families together in these king groups. So and it's the same thing as well. People talk about these these blood feuds that go on for thousands of years, but the Brehon law doesn't function like that. The Brehon law suppresses a lot of the blood feuds that happens in Ireland. And on top of that as well, what you have is a cattle raiding society. So instead of me, if I need to prove my worth against Mihal so I can get the woman down the road, I don't go over there and shove an axe into Mihal's head. That would cause a massive problem between his king group and my king group. Especially because even if you wipe out Mihal's clan, because he's tied into so many other clans that could even be tied into my clan as well. If I go and kill Mihal, all these king groups then suddenly rise up against me. So it's actually much more easier to go off and steal Mihal's cattle, bring it back to some form of fortification, preventing him from taking back his cattle by the end of that season. So when we have an assembly, all the women of Ireland can see that I have more cattle than Mihal, which causes all the women of Ireland to want to marry me, which raises my status within the society. So Ireland does not revolve around blood feuds. Blood feuds do happen in Ireland, of course, but it does not revolve around blood feuds, especially when you have Brehons who, if I was to kill Mihal, it's very good. It's very bad for Ireland for everybody to be butchering each other. So you have Brehon judges that come over and try to suppress and have some form of compensation, which then ultimately involves with me giving cattle to Mihal's family to stop all these blood feuds in Ireland. So I lose cattle by killing Mihal, not gaining cattle. It's way easier for me to just rob Mihal's cattle, which is something all these medias and video games not only doesn't understand, but completely leaves out, which, is terrible because there's so much banter around cattle raiding. Cattle raiding is absolutely fantastic. So it's a huge shame we don't see cattle raiding being depicted in so much media. Would you not agree,
Um,
Mihal? No?
yeah, no, yeah, I would. I would. It's something someone said came on there said they should make a mod, and I sort of when I get time, I work on a bit of a mod that I've been trying to do for a while, but it's just for
Mm,
me. And it's
yeah.
more historically accurate Ireland. Um,
Mm.
do you play? Oh, this one is interesting. Do you play Mountain Blade, and if so, do you prefer Warband or Banlord? I prefer the mod that Philip and I are historians for.
Yeah.
Delaguard. Del, I can't even pronounce it now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Delaguar. It's the war of it's Italian, but it's
It's Wars of
set
the Roses. Yeah, it's the
in
Wars of the Roses.
yeah yeah. But the name of it is named after an Italian book of war.
Mm.
Delaguart something Delaguerra. I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry. I'll put it in the chat. Um, but yeah, it's English, so it is an English speaking mod. It's set in the War of the
Mm.
Roses, and it's going to be very historically accurate, including Ireland,
Oh, it's
so and
massively.
Scotland and England. So
Mm.
it's great. It's been great to work on it so far. So probably Martin Bangalore for now for what we can do to it. But I will always have a special place in my heart for Warband. Um,
Yeah.
Fakatula, I can't go a night without sort of going over your. I just want to say that that's an interesting perspective that the Oonoctor are part of the Parsi, but there's no evidence of that. That Dara connection is phonetic, but it's not evidential of an actual. It's not mentioned in any early Irish sources. There's certainly no mention of the Parsi fleeing Yorkshire into Ireland. So there's no historical record of this. So if you
Mm.
have a source of that, I would love to, um, uh, see it. But the Derg team are they're presented in our sources as a monster kindred. They're not connected
Mm.
to the Oonok. Their origin cycle. They're not described as a British tribe transplanted from northern England. So, um, but it's an interesting theory.
Mm.
The Viking conquest in
Just
Ireland
quickly post that one into your chat.
got Ireland pretty good. No, it didn't. We've covered this many times, many lives. It didn't have the same impact on Ireland that it did on England.
Mm.
Blood feuds
Yeah,
were definitely a thing
exactly.
in the Kingdom of Vienna.
Go on.
No, it's just
Mm.
Back Control is also saying about um,
Viking conquest. Oh no! What? No, 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 no. You have what was it called? Turgis. I've ranted about this now a good few times, haven't I, Mihal?
yeah. Hang on, I'm going
Where
to get that mod up.
Turgis invades into Ireland around 840. He invades into Ireland in 840. Turgis does, and he's completely smashed by Mael Shocknell the First. If you can find a single example of a Viking invasion, I'm talking about a proper Viking invasion. I'm not talking about a rebellion, a successful rebellion from the men of Dublin. There is successful rebellions from the men of Dublin, where they successfully rebel against the High King. For example, you have Sitricky Emer, who was a Irish Viking, a Norse Gael, who successfully rebels against the Northern Inel, what was it called? Niall Glundov, who was over King of Ireland at the time, and he's actually killed by Sitricky Emer, who was King of Dublin at the time. So you can find examples of successful rebellions in the 200 years of the Viking Age in Ireland, but there is not a single successful Viking invasion of Ireland. Not a single Viking group that comes to Ireland to invade and penetrate into Ireland to take territory. None of them succeed. When you do have a Viking invasion of Ireland in 840, a military force made up of 140 men, according to the Annals of Ulster, they completely fail. They're completely battered by the High King of Ireland, Mael Shocknull. If you know a single example of a Viking invasion, a Viking group that sails from Norway to Ireland or even Denmark, penetrates in and takes land, or even takes the High Kingship of Ireland, I'd be glad to know. I'd love to know. We do have examples of the Irish Vikings, the Gaul Gael, the Norse Gaelic, or whatever you want to call them, successfully rebelling in Dublin. So we do have examples of them successfully rebelling, but there's no example of a Viking invasion being successful inside of Ireland. You get that a lot. I don't know. I don't know. People just seem to assume because there's a successful invasion in England, surely there must be a successful invasion of Ireland. But it's just people assuming and guessing. I don't know. Michal, what are you thinking?
No, just reading. You've put it up as well. I see the War of the Roses moment.
Yeah.
There's evidence in place themes that the Derntine originally spoke Brittonic, and it's mentioned through you were saying about DNA. Again, it's certainly not claimed. No historians jumping on that at the minute. So I will look into it more. Surely, but I'm aware of no connection. I know that the problem is with DNA is that we share so many clusters with Britain. We are so interconnected with Britain, and same with Britain with Europe. It's these clusters won't show a specific group. The Parsi coming into the Oanoctor, these groups would be nigh. It would be invisible within the wider groups, Iron Age groups that they're connected to. So you couldn't say, "Oh, this individual was a Parsi and he went across to the Oanoctor," considering the Oanoctor are an amalgamation of so many different groups. So it just seems very straight cut, and it's never that straight cut.
While we're shouting out to the Wars of the Roses mod, the person who's done the majority of, and I just want to give credit where credit's due, the person who's done the majority of the research into the armor and is actually running the administration of that mod is Ghost Hero. He's nicknamed as Ghost Hero. And I just want to give a shout out to himself because he has done oh my god, he's literally broken his back 360 for this mod here.
Yeah,
what was it called? He's been absolutely phenomenal, and the amount of research he's done into the armor when it comes down to the study of Irish history is absolutely phenomenal. He's an absolutely wonder, to be quite honest with you. You'll see him, his name buzzing around the place. Username is Ghost Hero. So just to give a shout out to himself as well. So it's not just myself and Michal doing the research into the Irish for that mod. It's also the stuff that Ghost Hero has done and his research into the armor is absolutely phenomenal. So just give a shout out to himself as well.
Yeah, he's done great work at trying to rope me in whenever I wander off and trying to get around. Poor guy's herding cats when it comes to trying to get this mod going. Someone's asking about when the release date is. But did they say 2027 is...
It's trying to, because they're doing it in their free time. I think they've got a good chunk of England almost completely done, and they're slowly drifting over to start Ireland up from last time I checked. For the time being, I would just be patient because it's lads doing it on their free time. And love the stuff they're doing right now in England because they're still over in England. And I think they have the basics of, what was it called? A lot of the stuff done for York and the Lancastrians done. because you can see, if you just type that onto YouTube, you can see all the stuff they've done so far. So they have done a good chunk of it, but it's the details. And the problem is, I've been watching it for a while, and there's some details that hold the lad back. Like, you would think they'd be able to get it done, solve some of these problems in an hour. And geez, it takes months. Like, sometimes I come back a year later and they're still stuck on some of those little tiny problems. And from my understanding, I have no clue when it comes down to coding or anything like that. But then suddenly they'll crack it and it's a completely new game. Like, they're revolutionizing the firearms in it for the period of the gun. What was it? The Wars of the Roses. They're revolutioning a lot of stuff that wasn't in the game originally. But at the same time, because of the way I've seen the process and stuff, I would just be very patient. What I've seen is just absolutely mind blowing. To be honest with you, like, you can see it for yourself if you type that into YouTube. You've got endless amount of trailers, and the trailers are just mind blowing. But at the same time, a lot of the times, the stuff you see is what I've seen for the first time as well. Because somebody will crack something, produce a trailer, and then shove it up to keep you guys updated. So they are constantly trying to work on it, but it's on their free time. They're not really being paid whatsoever. But it's still absolutely revolutionary work. It's absolutely amazing. And it's all historically accurate. Like, the level of historical accuracy is absolutely mind blowing. So I'll definitely go over to YouTube and check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Miha,
No. I just reading the fact controller's comments, just trying to make a mental note. So when I go, and sort of later on this evening, I'll check some of this stuff, like, because I don't.
Cashel. What was it called?
I mentioned about the rivers as
Go on.
well. But again, I don't know the names of every river in Ireland, so I need to go and check that out. Like, but so I'm just taking mental notes and stuff like that of this. So, because I can't come out with a counter.
He's actually right about the fort, though.
The what, Castilian?
I'm not sure. Yeah. He's actually right about it being Latin. I don't know about the rest of it, but it is interesting to note about that connection. I'm just quickly looking up the rest of what you're saying there. It's most likely for the time being connected to fortification, because of the fact that this is also the era when you have so many raids happening into Britain. It's also interesting to note that there's a weird technology sharing going on between Rome and Britain and Ireland at the time as well. If you look at the language of the what was it called? Oh my God, the Irish language at the time of Ogham. It seems to us that it's massively Latin influenced. Like, there seems to be somebody who's very, very educated with Gaelic and has gone over to Roman Britain or France and had gotten a full Latin education. Like, this is before St. Patrick comes to Ireland. So even before St. Patrick comes to Ireland, there seems to be a Gaelic person that seems to be massively educated with both Gaelic and Latin. And the fact that he's applying Latin back into Gaelic with the alphabet, which is Ogham, and even putting in spacing. It's the very, very first time. There's no spacing in Latin until the Irish put it in. So the Irish are reinventing Latin, which is mind-blowing. And this is before St. Patrick comes to Ireland as well, that we already have people who are educated, that may be Irish. They're educated in both Latin and Irish and are producing a new language called Hiberno-Latin, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And as the fact controller highlights there, the fact that we have the introduction of Latin over to Ireland at the time with the word cashel and cassiel. So, like, what's going on here? And that's over to the Rock of Cashel, that we're suddenly seeing these big, massive fortifications that are very similar to what you're seeing over in Rome as well, which is absolutely mind-blowing. to tell you the
but
truth,
also
like, you know.
you've also did like the Irish vocabulary for forts and castle. Well, forts already
Mm,
exists as well. Duns Fort, um, Rath's
mm,
Ring Fort, and then castle. Or I don't know the pronunciation of it, but it's not Cashel. It's not
yeah,
Castello.
casual,
It's
yeah.
Cashel. That's specifically a stone fort. So
Mm,
the linguists, the linguistics already exists, but obviously this is you're talking before that.
well,
There's
the
obviously
word casual appears. One.
no, there's obviously evidence of language exchange. There's obviously evidence of
Oh yeah.
mass amounts of backwards and forwards um, between Britain and Ireland, but it doesn't denote that a
Mm.
specific group is then related to because of a
Oh
few
yeah.
words here and a few words there. Um, you've mentioned
Mm,
genetics too, but again, Iron Age genetics is a minefield all on its own. Um, and
mm,
also the Irish are very good at giving us a sort of picture of who they're related to. It can sometimes be fabricated, it can sometimes be misaligned, but we still get a very good image of what medieval Ireland looks like. And there's
mm,
no the fact that this group, the Parsi, are never mentioned, it would be a red flag enough for me
mm.
to be like, why not? Or even given another name so that they can be,
Yeah.
a Gaelicized name. But then again, like I say, it's not a subject. Iron Age Ireland is not my area of expertise. Um, Am I skipping?
It's slightly slowed
So
down a wee bit, all right, but it's not too bad. I'm just quickly reading the
yeah, no,
comments and stuff.
so no, Irony Ireland is not my area of expertise. So I have to go back and
Mm.
research before I out and out disclaim it altogether. But like I say, no one will ever can ever discredit the interactions between Ireland and Britain and the wider world.
Yeah.
It happened. Um,
Mm.
but I know you're very much fat control on the ethnic side of things, which is um, when it comes to Gaelic culture, is a bit, it doesn't really make sense because the Gaels weren't a people; they were an amalgamation of people.
Mm.
What is a Gael? You have to describe what a Gael is before you can pick a hill to die on and what it is about that what it is you're arguing. And the fact that the Gaels are made up of multiple groups of migration waves into Ireland coming from the Neolithic period all the way up to the Iron Age, just shows it's a multi-ethnic group. It's a multi-ethnic label that has been designated to the people now living in Ireland and speaking Irish. Um, it's not just like a
What was it?
specific.
It's the work. Fat Controller, have you been looking at Dr. Anthony Harvey's work? Dr. Anthony Harvey is the one that is the master at Hiberno Latin. The thing is it's not a foreign language. Somebody in Ireland has constructed Hiberno Latin. And it's also interesting that they're not speaking Hiberno Latin amongst themselves. They're speaking Hiberno Latin to other foreigners. It's something that's constructed between the educated class, but amongst themselves, they're still speaking Gaelic. So it's a language that's constructed to talk to foreigners, and it's an external language. But the Irish at the time still seem to have an external language, which is Gaelic. So as we study the Irish going into the golden age of saints and scholars, which is right now is the work of Dr. Anthony Harvey. So Dr. Anthony Harvey is the one that specializes in it right now. He's like the go-to man right now about it. But he's like heavily pointed out that it definitely is an external language, is Hiberno Latin. And it's something that's very much constructed. Like they sat down and they constructed the language that is Hiberno Latin. You can tell by how it is. Like if you take English, English is a very barbarous language in the fact that it's very bastardized. Hiberno-Latin does not seem to be bastardized. Don't get me wrong, it evolves over time, and we can see indications of it evolving over time, and it's very exciting to study. But Hiberno-Latin, just like the Japanese language, is a language where people sat down and constructed it, which is very, very interesting and exciting in itself. Where English is not a constructed language. Nobody sat down, except they tried doing it with American English. American English is language that somebody did sat down and tried to construct it. But and Queen's English is another example where somebody tried to sit down and construct it. But most of like the English I'm speaking right now is a bastard language. It's the language that was conceived over time by itself. It's not a language that somebody sat down and decided how I was going to speak. But Hiberno-Latin is definitely a language where somebody sat down and started to construct it, you know. Back Control, I'd love you to turn around and actually look at Dr. Anthony Harvey's work right now and tell me what you think of his work. Let's not forget that thousands of years of Irish history has been lost. What points are you talking about that has been lost? You are correct that Henry VIII and what was his name? Cromwell has definitely burned plenty of literature. So I'd love to know which ones you're raging about right now that's missing. Which contains, you are right. The Annals of Cashel is missing. That's a very good point. I definitely do agree with. It was stolen from the library of the Earls of Kildare and is hidden in. Oh, you reckon it's hidden in London? Why do you believe that it's hidden in London? Because I always, to be honest with you, Fat Controller, I assumed it was burned. That either Henry VIII or what was his name? Cromwell burned it when actually, there we go. There's Cashel now. The reason why it's in ruins is because of the likes of Henry VIII and Cromwell burning it and setting it alight. And with it, I assumed it was burned. I don't think the of Cashel was burned. I think it's still intact in London. That's an interesting one. Very, very interesting. Why do you think it was preserved? Just out of interest, like, because I just assumed, to be honest with you, that it was burned. St. Paddy's Day spoke Hiberno-Latin. He would have actually spoken. If we look at, is it? You go over to the confessio.ie. It's actually online. Give us a quick second there. We can actually do this together. If we type in confessio.ie, St. Patrick's letters. We go over to the confessio.ie. There we go. Does it actually say on the website if it's Hiberno-Latin or what was it called? I think it just says Latin on the page, sadly. Give us a second. I assumed it would be Roman Britain, but I'm not qualified to actually say that, to be honest with you. Manuscripts. No, it doesn't say St. Patrick's letter. You can get all of this, by the way. You can actually read it. It's already translated. Confessio.
What I miss?
It's either in Roman Latin. Sorry, what was it? Oh my God, was it Roman Britain Latin or it's in Hiberno-Latin? St. Patrick, the Confessio. Do you assume it's in, or do you know if it's in Hiberno-Latin or Roman Britain Latin? I actually don't know, to be honest with you. I have it here. Just type in confessio.ie and it's there. I'm not a linguistic, so I don't specialize. And I actually, to be honest with you, I had this question pop up as well with Rachel the other day. What's the difference between Hiberno-Latin and Roman Britain Latin? And I'm not qualified. I could not tell the difference between the two. The person who actually is the master of it is Dr. Anthony Harvey. So have a look at his work, but not qualified. Couldn't tell you. And I don't think it actually says on the website which one it is. It just has it in Guelga, Italian, Portuguese. Where's the original one? Special biography. No, it just says Latin. It doesn't say which type of Latin though. So yeah. Sadly, I'm not qualified to actually tell you. I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you. What you thinking, Michal?
No, I'm just trying to think then, because obviously, he speaks Latin. He speaks a form of Romany Britain. He probably have spoken
Mm,
some subset of Brythonic as well, depending on where he lived. Obviously, because we don't actually know where he lived. People claim to know and will vehemently just state he lived in St David's in Scotland,
mm,
parts of Cumbria or Wales. But actually, historians will tell you that the town that he mentions, we actually don't know where that is. Uh, there's one town that phonetically lines up, but that's the only correlation they have, and I believe that's
mm,
in Northern England. Um, but we don't actually know. So he would have probably spoken some sort of local dialect as well of some of the natives in the area, wherever that was. Um, but
mm.
he obviously spoke Irish from his time in captivity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably going to be written in one of those. And obviously, you've got to remember as well that he's he's writing it for an audience as well. So he's not going to to write it
Mm,
in sort of any sort of Romano-Brythonic dialect or anything like that wouldn't make sense when his audience is speaking one of two languages, Latin or Irish. So um, I would say
mm.
it's in Latin or Irish. But
Yeah.
that's
Geez, Fat Controller, you do go out there and read books.
um,
Having a quick scan because that's an interesting one. Fat Controller was saying there, Mihal, when you were gone, that he believes that the Book of Cashel wasn't burned by Henry VIII or Cromwell, that they actually took the book and brought it back to London, and that it was a threat to what was it called, English rule in Ireland, which I definitely agree with. Like if you what was it called, remove evidence of a person's lineage to their land, and that's what the English constantly push forward, is the fact that they claim they have the papal bull that gives them the right to rule Ireland from 1169 onwards. But you see, this is what's very interesting, is that people have been looking for evidence. Irish historians right now, Irish academics even, especially in University College of Cork, want evidence that this bull exists. Because nobody, like the English keep claiming they have it. The papacy reckon it exists as well. But no Irish academic has seen this. They know of its existence, obviously, because it's bloody taught everywhere, but nobody's actually seen this bull. Well, people claim they have it, but where is it? Where's the existence of it? So nobody's brought the papal bull forward. The liabilitor, as it's called, nobody's brought it forward to prove that England actually has the right or had the right to invade Ireland in the first place. And it's very interesting as well. Everyone would then claim that the Norman conquest of Ireland was success. It wasn't. They actually lost the Battle of Turles. The English lost the Battle of Turles in 1160. What was it, 1175, which is very
mhm.
interesting because, as you know yourself, lads, the Battle of Hastings was a massive success for the Normans. But the Normans actually lost the Battle of Turles against the Gaelic, which everybody seems to forget. And then what happened after that? You have the siege in Limerick, which ends in a stalemate, which shouldn't have left. It should not have ended in a stalemate, because Rory O'Connor actually betrayed the O'Briens. The O'Briens are holding Limerick Castle, and they were winning that siege. What was it called? The O'Briens were winning the siege against the Normans until Rory O'Connor came to an agreement with Henry II. And he ends up, Rory O'Connor betrayed the O'Briens and allowed the Normans to capture, what was it called? Limerick. Well, they didn't capture it. What happened is that the O'Briens burned Limerick Castle, and had a tactical withdraw from the castle. Once they knew the O'Connors had betrayed them, the O'Connors were meant to be the High Kings of Ireland at the time. They had betrayed the O'Briens for the English. What was it called? And that's with the Treaty of Windsor around, I think it was 1165 or 1176. But the O'Connors had betrayed the O'Briens, leaving the siege of Limerick in a stalemate, because the O'Briens would come back and retake what was it called, Limerick Castle again, and the siege of Limerick would last on for ages, until eventually there was an agreement and a marriage alliance between the Burghs and the O'Briens, which everyone seems to forget. Like, everyone thinks that the battle up in Dublin is the final battle. The battles and stuff that happened up in Dublin ended in a tactical withdrawal for the O'Connors, and eventually then would lead to the eventually you'd have a whole load of skirmishes in between, and eventually you'd have the Battle of Thurles, which was a success for the O'Connors. The O'Connors win the Battle of Thurles, and then you'd go on to the Siege of Limerick, which would end in a stalemate. So what was it called? The Norman invasion of Ireland ultimately was a failure in many regards for anyone who was, for the likes of Strongbow and Henry II, who were looking to take the kingship of Ireland and be kings of Ireland. So from the perspective of wanting to be kings of Ireland, it was a failure. Ultimately, you could see the Norman invasion of Ireland as some kind of stalemate. Go on.
Yeah, no, but it just, this all again ties back to the statement there about the papal bull. And you got to remember who wrote the papal bull as well. It was Pope Adrian, who was an English pope.
Yeah.
So
allegedly,
and he actually physically described the Irish as barbarous and rude. So he already didn't like us when he's issuing this to Henry II. So just remember, even if they found this bull and produced it, it's a very political piece of paper. It's not. It's as the Pope was. Where's that comment? I've got too many chats up here.
Fat Controller. If you read the Confessio as well, you are right. Fat Controller, have you read the Confessio? What's your thoughts on the Confessio, Fat Controller? Because I definitely would. What was it called? Dr. Owen O'Neill is not a fan of the usage of Celtic Christianity. And I do agree with Dr. Owen O'Neill's interpretation of Insular Christianity, as they're referring it to. Because the problem is that if you use the word Celtic Christianity, people would assume that it's a fully organized religion. And the thing is about Insular Christianity, or Celtic Christianity as you guys are calling it there, is that it's a religion that evolves in Ireland by itself independently, and that's why people prefer to use the word Insular Christianity. It's a religion that suddenly it doesn't come into Ireland and just goes whack. Celtic Christianity, Celtic paganism is dead in Ireland. It's something that kind of evolves next to Celtic paganism in Ireland, and it's quite complicated. And the problem is as well is that we're missing a massive amount of literature that explains the evolution of Insular Christianity inside of Ireland. One of the biggest arguments and debates that's happening all this week, and has been happening all year, between the likes of Maynooth University and various universities over in York as well, is the evolution of Brigid in Ireland, which is a very, very complicated figure. Because if we were to look at the evidence beforehand, there seems to be some kind of connection between the goddess Burgundies in York and Kildare. So there seems to be some kind of indication that there was a goddess in Kildare at the time, maybe called Brigid, maybe called Burgundies. We just don't know. And then suddenly we have a saint in that same region called Brigid, or a woman that is called Brigid at the time in around 500 AD to 550 AD. But she's not recorded until 100 years afterwards in 650 in the bibliography of Brigid, where it basically, all it says, it gives us very few sentences, and it basically says that you have a woman, maybe you guys can correct me on this if you read the bibliography of Brigid, that now has been rewritten in 800 AD. It was rewritten into the Book of Armagh. The original one is allegedly destroyed. We can't find the original. documentation of the bibliography of Brigid that was written in 650 AD. The copy is written in 800 AD, which is in the Book of Armagh, and it's only a very few lines from my readings and stuff. Maybe maybe I've missed something, but in my own readings, it gives us very, very little information inside there, and that is basically that a woman called Brigid basically chose the Bishop of Ireland, which in itself is insanely interesting. And on top of that as well is that she's the head of the handmaidens that protect this cauldron of fire in Kildare. So in itself is very, very interesting. But it also gives us this kind of keyhole look into this evolution of Celtic paganism into insular Christianity. That is a religion that's kind of evolving by itself, which in itself is so interesting. The comments there are super interesting as well. It's Celtic as identity. Go on there, what are you saying?
No, if I've just got another question someone was asking here. String for life, so I was just going to go into that briefly. So they get it from this chat. When was the island of Ireland named part of the British Isles? That's a twofold. That's a twofold question, because it appears in Pythias of Marseille's the Britannic Islands. This is the proto word for British. In the
but he doesn't call it Ireland.
No. He calls it the Britannic Islands, right? So it's pluralized, and it means
he's not talking about Ireland there.
Wait. So yeah, it's the.
Go on. I know I'm putting my foot down there just to make sure. Go on.
Just shut up.
I'm getting political about this. Remember, these are conversations.
That's what I'm going
like
to.
An academic.
That's what I'm going to. I'm gonna
go
tick all the boxes you can.
Go on.
So yeah. Pythias of Marseille names it the Britannic Islands the painted ones or the tattooed ones. It kind of loosely translates to, in like 300 BC. But you have to remember the context of what Pythias is actually writing this in. He's not gone up to the islands himself and spoken to the inhabitants of both these islands and go, what do you call this? Most likely what has happened is he is speaking to other traders, people from the Roman world, or not the Roman world, sorry, the trading world, and most of them will be Brythonic speakers, and he's asking them, who lives there, and they'll be like, oh well, Britons live there, and he's gone, okay, that's the Briton, that's the Britanni live there, that's the Britanni. He's not actually gone up and asked the individual groups what do they call the island. So it's a very generic name for it. That's not what the people of the island are calling the whole islands themselves at that time. We can also see that with the fact that only like 100 years later, when other cartographers are writing about it, they're calling it Ernie.
Just to be clear, and quickly put in there, he is not talking about Hibernia there. Just to be clear, he is not talking about Hibernia in that sentence.
No, Hibernia comes into play in the first century. Hibernia comes into play in the first century by like Julius Caesar, and but before that, about 100 years, so in like 200 BC, you start seeing Ierne or Hierne or Herne written on maps next to Ireland. So already you can start to see as the map gets fleshed out, as the world becomes smaller and cartographers and traders and they meet more people, more information is coming in. So you can see that more of the map gets fleshed out. Think of a game where you sort of can see a map, but you haven't cleared that part of the map yet. So you can't actually see who's living there, what resources are there. That's basically what Pythias is dealing with. That's the problem he has. People then try to apply that to modern politics, because obviously we start using the British Isles again as a political statement later on, especially during the sort of 17th and 18th century. And people start thinking, well, it's always been called this. It hasn't always been called this. That's a problematic statement. It has just been referred to by outside sources with limited information about the area as a general descriptor for what is up there. What is up there? The Britannic Isles. That's it. You know, it's not saying all of these are the Britannic Isles. So everyone in it is Brythonic, P Celtic speaking people. They're not saying that. But people have latched onto that politically later on to claim that. When we can obviously see that that's not the picture. So you've just got to be very careful.
It is the Greeks in 320 that identifies the island of Ireland separate. What was it called? Era is what the what was it called? The Greeks referred to Ireland at the time as, and it's the first time you see that kind of Ireland development from that. Where the Romans referred to Ireland as a separate Ireland again. Referred to as Hibernia. So the Romans referred to as the, what was it called? The the land of winter. But it's the Greeks who originally discovered Ireland and referred to as separately from Britain in 320 BC. Okay. And then it's Davy Jones who hits the nail on the head in the comment section where he turns around and says, the British Isles debate thing, it wouldn't even be British, but Britannic, something like that. And from the term British Isles name calling from the British imperialist Elizabeth I time frame, you're 100% right. It's Elizabeth I and her conquest of Ireland where you see this complete rewriting of the history of Britain and Ireland. And even today, you still have endless amount of YouTubers, British Isles, British Isles, British Isles, British Isles. It's not. It's Britain and Ireland. Britain is a completely different island to Ireland, and it should be recognised. People should be referring to as Britain and Ireland. It's something that I completely, 100% do not recognise. I do not recognise the term British Isles. It's something that Queen Elizabeth's propaganda started to use in the 16th century. I don't have a huff every single time a historian says it, but I refuse to say it. And what really annoys me is, and I get very tick about it, and I have no problems getting tick about it, is when I have another historian trying to enforce that term against me. It is a stupid and ignorant term. When you say it or say it against me and you're ignorant to the usage of the word and how it was invented in the 16th century, you literally have a brain that must have been smacked against the wall a few times in my interpretation. So it's basically a word that was made up in the 16th century.
I agree. I mean, look, you can the Isles have been called different things at different times by different cartographers, by different Greek writers. Poseidon, Strabo, to name a few. Aristotle. I don't think it's the famous Aristotle, but I remember the name. It's been called as Albion and Ernie. Ireland's been called Eris. It's been called Erie. It's been called Hibernia later by the Romans. Ivernia as well. So it's had a lot of name changes, these islands, and it all comes from the information that these people are getting at that time. It doesn't speak for the individual on the ground. You wouldn't say if you give someone a map today of just which party leads a country, you wouldn't turn around and be like, oh, America's, everyone in America votes Trump because I can see a map and it's got Trump written across it in red. You wouldn't, when you look local down, there are different factions within that. Same with CCP in China. Same with, these very broad statements don't reflect what's actually happening on the ground. As for the term British Isles, I'm not a fan of it. I would never use it myself. I don't get irked when people use it. I do get irked when people try to, like you say, enforce it. That is like they start going, if you go, oh, we don't refer, why do you not use the term British Isles? Oh, I don't, there's two islands on it. One doesn't recognize it. I think the British government don't even really recognize it now. But regardless, and And well, it's that's the official term. I'm just like, well, I'm sorry, it's the official term from one side of the argument. It's if I suddenly
Yeah.
start going around and going, Ireland's united, and then they went, no, it's not, and I'm like, well, that's the official term of all the people I speak to. They wouldn't like it. So it's just. But I don't care if I see posts about it. I'm not as anti it as, but I would never use it myself. I think it's just common courtesy, really.
Anyway, in a more positive light, and I think the Fat Controller would like this as well. Fat Controller, tell me, what's your view on the roots of the Kennel Owen? Where do you think the Kennel Owen come from? I want to talk about the Kennel Owen. That's a more positive conversation. The Kennel Owen. What do you think of the Kennel Owen, Mihal? What's your views on the Kennel Owen?
What do you mean? What's my views on the Kennel Owen?
What do you think of the Kennel? I like talking about the Kennel Owen.
What's
your views of the Kennel Owen? Because wasn't there a book that was saying that the Kennel Owen were not linked? And what was it called? The Fat Controller would love this one. Weren't linked to the ENL. Do you think what was it called? The Kennel Owen were linked to the original Nile of the Nine Hostages. What's your view on that argument? Do you think they're linked to Nile of the Nine Hostages?
Right. So there's two. No, the break happened between the McLaughlins and the O'Neill, and the O'Neill are not meant to be part of the O'Neill dynasty traditionally. And there's an origin story about them being a separate. There's basically when the O'Neills take over from the McLaughlins and beat the McLaughlins, there is a bit of a rumor spread about the first king having unknown parentage, that his mother was, let's just say, very, very good friends with the family butler. So obviously you have that, but as a whole, I believe the story you're referring to, this the book. What was that? It got republished there last year or this year. The problem with it, they're not a single biological group. That's the problem when you start saying, the O'Neill are not this and they're not related to this person. Clans are not polygenetic. They absorb other peoples into their clan system, into the tribal group. So you can't refer every person within the Kennel Owen will claim descent from Niall Noglach, but not every person will be. And that's the problem with the clan system, is that when you take literary genealogy as fact, as like whenever it's written down that this person is related to this person is related to this person, but it's not the case. These are propaganda pieces. These are stories. Sometimes they're just simplified history just to break it down for simplification. They're not literal genealogies. They're not taken. So are the O'Neill an offshoot of the Connacht? Probably not. Is the founder of the Niall Noglach? Well, I can agree. There's certainly a princely branch that descends from a king, probably around the times of Niall Noglach, depending on if he's actually real or not. Did he have 12 sons? Well, and each branch descends from them? Probably not, because in earlier genealogies, he only has 4 sons. So, Connell, Ogan, Logair, and Corpry or something. So again, we can see that these groups, Brian Lacey's book, I believe it is Brian Lacey's book. I think that's the individual we were talking about, who says that the Kennel Colin and Kennel Owen are not actually descendants of Niles. Instead, they're like they're actually part of similar groups as the Criftney, or earlier groups, or the Dalfiatuk, all these sort of earlier groups of Ulster. They're actually a part of that, and they fabricated the genealogy for unification. So that's Brian Lacey's work, is that they're not part of that group. They're not descended from Niall Noglach. But again, modern DNA kind of is throwing smoke up and kind of muddying the waters about what it is. But again, it's when people take genealogical tracks where groups and individuals claim descent from specific groups and take that as fact, and that's not the it's not the whole story. There's a reason why these are written.
Yeah. That's a quite interesting. The book we were talking about what is called, if you go on to the fourcourtspress.ie, you can find the book there. It's called Kenil Owen and the Donegal Kingdoms, AD 800 to 1200s by Brian Lacey. So you disagree with that book, is it?
No, I don't disagree in the sense of I have a very fluid version of that I can understand that why groups are changing their genealogies and why they're placing themselves in specific times in history. Why Congal Clean of the Dalnaraj is claiming descent from the Oamaha, from Aboriginal groups of Ireland. Why the Dalfeatic and the Dalnaraj are spending 300 years arguing about who are the true Ullid. Why the Eneal suddenly come in and suddenly their genealogy proves that they're the ancient kings of Ulster so they have a right to Ulster. The same way Brian Boru has genealogy claiming to be part of the Owen Octor. This is all a case of legitimacy. It's not a case of fact. It's not a case of, well, what we can say is that the Eneal are the rightful rulers of Ulster from the 7th century up to the 16th century because they enact the right of conquest and they conquer Ulster. There's no true descendant of an Aboriginal group because we are so intermingled. To claim to be some pure line descendant of a specific group in Ulster gets me more worried about the health concerns that you may have from that years of inbreeding. So rather than letting you rule the kingdom of Ulster. So I'm not worried about it. I don't really mind. Both are interesting theories and both can be true and wrong at the same time for multiple reasons. So I don't get pegged down by it. Because also for the fact of that I'm a Dalfeatic supporter.
Right. we know where this is going.
They're the true
Fact controller. Was it fact controller? Do not say things like that. Con of the 100 Battles was real, okay? We won't handle that stuff in this chat. You'll be getting banned if you say he's not real. He's in the chat there saying that Con of the 100 Battles was made up. What, to prove someone's lineage? That never happens in Irish history. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Huh? He was a real man. I won't have that spoken in my comment section, huh?
Look, I'm descended from
I was going to ask something else. When you're one... also a real person. He existed during the Iron Age, okay? Don't know what you're talking about. What else was I meant to say? Michal, just out of my own curiosity, this is my own question to you. When you're pushing up for your doctorate, what do you want to do your doctorate in? Just out of curiosity. As of right now, if I was to do a doctorate right now, I would definitely do it on the protection racket of the Gaul Gael, the Irish Vikings in the 10th century. If I was to do a doctorate right now, if you were to do a doctorate now, what subject would you do? Just out of curiosity.
If I was to do a doctorate right now, what subject would I do?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I've always wanted to. I've written a paper for the last couple of years, but I haven't never released it. And it's basically why the Dalfeatic are the true Ulstermen. So I would probably do.
Right.
So I would probably work from that and sort of do my doctorate on the Dalfeatic. They would be my. But then again, I would never, I probably at the same flip of a coin, I wouldn't, because I've heard too many stories from people who've done doctorates about, once they've done a doctorate in something, they never want to look at it again. So because they've just spent years reading about it and researching it and doing stuff for it and papers and dissertations that they never want to see anything. And I would to do that to Irish history to me would destroy me.
I think you're in a comfortable position because I notice, and maybe you have a different experience than I have. I noticed that people who did doctorates when they were young completely destroyed the subject for themselves.
Mhm.
But I think it's because they just went about everything the ass ways, basically.
Mm.
They didn't know how to, they had poor communication skills, they didn't know how to express themselves, they didn't know how to ask for, the right way to ask for advice off their doctorates. They didn't know how to put everything together, where I find people who go for their doctorates from the age 40 upwards when they've started to retire and tidy everything, working and grinding life, that start to get either settled down or they've started to tidy that away and they're in a comfortable position financially when they start the doctorate. It's something they end up working on for the rest of their life with enjoyment. So it's definitely, when it comes down to especially doctor level upwards, masters and doctorate level upwards, it's definitely something you're better for history anyway, not talking about everything else, but history and archaeology, it's definitely something that's better to do when you're older, from my opinion, that you're better off getting a doctorate in something else to start with, such as accountancy or an actual doctor of medicine. They're the places to get when you're young. Doctorates in the likes of archaeology and history, I have found in my experience, they're stuff that's better to get when you're older. Also, on top of that as well, if you're passionate about history and archaeology, it's something that you will build up over time. You spend your 20s, your 30s, even your 40s and your 50s getting involved, slowly but surely seeping into the world of history and archaeology and building those contacts. And also on top of that as well, you've now become something important. Like your doctor and other people within the academic world will turn to you as well. So you're something of value. When you're in your 20s, you're not valuable. You're seen as young and stupid. And people treat you like that, as young and stupid. So I do find that people are easily slapping younger people away when they're trying to poke and prod for things within their doctorate. And even listening to a lot of people, Matt Easton, his buddy who went for his doctorate, and it started off as a master's because he was specializing in the Wallace collection, and he was trying to category every single armor inside of the Wallace collection, and it literally went from a master's into a doctorate into a professor, and he's even gone ahead of that. And it was definitely something because he had worked inside of the Wallace Museum for the majority of his life. It was a domino effect there, where he had the contacts, he was somewhat of value within the academic world. So when he started to go for his master's and his doctorate, it became a domino effect. And I think you should when you're going, when you're spending your 20s and your 30s, and then when you go into your 40s, your 50s, you suddenly have a domino effect. Mm. And I think Micheál, the two of us there, are in that position that we can easily shape ourselves, that when we finally go for our doctorate, it's more of a checkmate rather than running around like a fool trying to put everything about and it turning into this horrible situation. No, I'm not saying that doctorate isn't work. It's work, obviously. But when you do the work, I think from my experience and listening to people, you'd rather it be a checkmate rather than this being this complete unorganized nightmare, for sure, from what I've seen so far.
Just quickly go back. Have you Y DNA tested, Michael? I have. But I've only got the Y250. I think they were doing to 500 a couple of years ago, and then I think someone said that they were doing up to like 1,000 or something. But I've only done the 250. My family group Y-DNA is, from what it tells me, is basically, from what I already knew, stuck in the North Louth, South Down, sort of parts of, between sort of anywhere between Newry and Banbridge, and that sort of area of Ulster has been there for God knows how long. So so I'm just part of that neck of the woods, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, I love it. That's what I've got here. The behind me on this image is is part of that, is from that area. So I have Cicero agreeing with my Dalphiatic claims. I have 02399 disagreeing with it. How powerful were the Boleyns? Which Boleyns? Because you've got the Thomond branch of Boleyns, you've got the Tira branch of Boleyns, Sligo, and you've got the Ulster branch of Boleyns as well. So, I mean, the Thomond branch of Boleyns would probably be the most powerful because they sort of claim descent from like Brian Boru. So I suppose they would be the more powerful, as you ask there, King Kong. Young.
Heading back over to the Four Courts as well, another book that everybody would be interested in. The Celtic World by John Wedlow. February 2026. Has that been pushed back again? That's an interesting one as well. Because it's a complete update to all the everything to do with Celtic culture, and a complete update to everything. So it's definitely a book to watch out for. What else do we have in here? Oh, Brigid's World. That's the one that Maynooth University keeps drilling in over and over and over again. I don't know if anybody here listens to the Irish Medieval podcast over on Spotify. But this book is starting so many arguments right now. It's called Brigid's Worlds. And it's one of those books everyone's looking forward to because of the argument, was St. Bridget real, is so much on fire right now. So it's a book that everybody's looking out for. That's dated right now on the Four Courts to November 2026. So if anyone's interested in that massive argument, definitely head on over to the Four Courts and have a look at that one. That's definitely going to be a book I'm going to pay attention to. All right. There's another book I didn't see before as well. First published, it's a republishing of Iona, Kells, and Derry, a history and hagiography of the monastic family of Columba. When's that dated for? Let me have a quick click on that one. November 2027. So it's not out until next year. I think that would be a book that you'd probably be after as well, Mihal. The Iona, Kells, and Derry, a history and hagiography of the monastic family of Columba. Because he's connected to the Kenilworth as well, isn't he?
Connell.
Columbus,
He's a prince.
Yeah,
Of the Kenilworth. So he's and then he goes across to Iona with close family members as well. So they believe that obviously he has descendants there or close, that would form the groups that I think the groups of Iona, like from the Scottish side, you've got the McKinnons are original holders of Iona. You've got the McAllisters come in later, Branson McDonald's. So they're probably going to show up relations to them as well through intermarriage with the groups that are there. But yeah, so I'm just trying to find my FTDNA results. Was asking about them, and I'm trying to find my what FTDNA what haplogroup I was. But I can't see it. And you know what? I'll find out. No idea. But I haven't been on FTDNA for about probably about 2 years. Because I couldn't afford to upgrade to the next level and find out how, because the number, they tier it depending on here we go. They tier it on how much you can afford to pay. So here's my kit number. I found my kit number. So I'll let you answer the question while I quickly try and pull this up and see what I can see about, if I can remember my password. Hopefully.
You guys aren't the boys aren't talking all that much and asking questions. The chat's definitely from what I see anyway. Maybe the thing's just not updating itself, but I can't see any. I'm just popping over to your one. Yeah, it's not moving as much as it was before.
Hang on. Maybe because
What do you all think about the Murphy name?
Murphy's.
What was it called? What was it called? Michal loves talking about the Murphys endlessly.
Everyone always
What was
asks
it called?
about the Murphys.
Which branch?
Everyone,
It's one of the most popular names in Ireland, believe it or not. It depends
yes.
what branch of the Murphys you're talking about, really, isn't it?
Yes, there's so many. There's so
What
many
was it called?
branches.
Yeah.
That's the problem. There's so many branches of the Murphys that are unrelated. I'll tell you what. I'll leave you to waffle
Mm.
about the MacMurrough line and who they descend from. Dermot
The
MacMurrough.
MacMurroughs.
Yeah, because they get
Oh,
anglicized to
Dermot
Murphy.
MacMurrough. Yeah. Oh, do they?
Hmm.
Didn't really. Yeah, they do,
Yeah,
don't they? I think there was already a branch of Dacia. There was a Dacia Murphy branch as well, isn't there? And then you have, as you point out there, Dermot MacMurrough, because they also become because the MacMurrough-Kavanagh. So it must be all the bastard branches of the MacMurroughs that become Murphys, because MacMurrough-Kavanagh, he's still Lord in Leinster today. He was actually recently interviewed this week over on Instagram. Somebody actually, one of the, it was an English baron or something. He's going around to the different houses in Britain, but he actually went over to Ireland recently and went over to Lord MacMurrough-Kavanagh's estate. So what happened is, after the Norman invasion of Ireland, the MacMurrough-Kavanaghs do not recognize the marshals, and they also don't recognize the butlers, wasn't it? Because the butlers and the marshals were related to Isabel de Clare, but the MacMurrough-Kavanaghs and that branch refused to recognize them as the successors of Leinster. And this feud goes all the way up to the Hundred Years' War, where the MacMurrough-Kavanaghs successfully beat the English. They go as far as actually beating the English. The MacMurrough-Kavanaghs, it was Art MacMurrough-Kavanagh, had actually married Isabel de Ville, which meant that they were going to end up inheriting a whole load of land in Leinster and break the statutes of Kilkenny, to the annoyance of Richard II. So Richard II couldn't have that. A big, massive, one of the most powerful families going to end up being a Gaelic family. Even more annoying is the fact that was Art MacMurrough-Kavanagh actually collected the black tribute, the black rent from Dublin, which completely also it also undermines the argument of 800 years of British occupation. Sure, how can it be 800 years of British occupation if in 1370 Art MacMurrough-Kavanagh, a Gaelic man, goes into Dublin and collects the black tribute, the tribute from Dublin, putting himself as the man with the biggest sausage. Regardless, this obviously really annoys the English, so they end up invading twice. So between, what was it, 1877? I could be wrong on that one. But between, what was the original date of the invasion? I cannot it's out of my head. But it definitely in 1399 anyway, you see the second massive invasion of Ireland. I'm trying to bloody remember, because I know Roger Mortimer, I think it's around 1380, if I'm not mistaken, or 1390. Roger Mortimer ends up being killed by the O'Tooles because of all this fighting that's happening between the Gaelic and the English in Leinster. Roger Mortimer is killed between the jigs and the reels, and it was meant to be a battle. But it ends up being a quick skirmish because of the fact when they're all lined up to do battle and stuff, Roger Mortimer, who's very drunk at the time, he's dressed as a Kern. He breaks formation and just goes straight into the Kern formation. The Kerns at the time thought he was another Kern, just a very strange, weird Kern. They pull him off his horse and end up hacking him up and decapitating him. And afterwards, they realized it was Roger Mortimer. So they obviously apologized for that because they never actually meant to chop up Roger Mortimer. But when he's chopped up and killed, that's the end of the battle, which ends up just being a quick skirmish. And because of that, it became dire circumstances for the English in Ireland, because it leaves the likes of Innis Castle and also Trim Castle completely vulnerable. So what ends up happening is that the Gaelic completely overrun all those areas and once again are a complete threat to Dublin Castle. So the Gaelic resurgence, as it's referred to at the time, is a complete success for the Gaelic. And it's also obviously a success for the dynasty that is the MacMurrough-Kavanagh dynasty. And so the MacMurrough-Kavanagh today are still lords in Leinster today. So yeah, that's my rundown of the MacMurrough-Kavanagh family.
I've got my
So yeah,
I've got my DNA thing, but I'll just say quickly. Let me just move this out. That get this Y-DNA testing out the way. Yeah. You talked about the you've got the Ekin-Seller line of the Murphys. So they're like from County Wexford, parts of like South Wicklow. You've got the Murphys of Muskerry. So that's Cork. You've got the McMurphys of the Kennellowen and of the Airchilla in Ulster. All of these names are interchangeable. You've got you've got the Murphys of Sligo, but all of these various names are variations of multiple Irish names, and then they've been interchangeable with Murphy, Murray, Murrough, Murco. All these sort of anglicized names become interchangeable. So unless your family's lived in a specific area for a specific amount of time, it can be very hard to distinguish which group you are from, especially if they've moved into hubs, like towns or cities later on, and multiple Murphys into marrying, stuff like that. So, but yeah, I do have a video on them. I do have a short on the Murphys and all the branches. I will just say, I haven't been on Y-DNA for a long time. So when I said I've only got the Y250, what I meant is I've only got the Y111. I haven't got the big Y testing. So I've got the second to best. I'm not an expert on DNA by any stretch. My Y-DNA haplogroup is RM269, which I do believe is just a very generic Bronze Age Y-DNA group that's like 80% of Europe. So and I need the big Y test to find out exactly what my haplogroup is, I believe. But if someone knows on Y-DNA, on family tree DNA, how to see and my closest relations seem to be O'Byrnes from the Louth area, of which I do know the story of them. Anyone who's a Byrne or O'Byrne from South Ulster, their origins, the traditional story of the family is that they were a sept of the O'Byrnes of Wicklow, who were hired under Hugh O'Neill, and then settled in that location after the loss of Kinsale, or maybe even before, but during his campaign. But I do know that the O'Byrne DNA group has distinguished that they are not related. So that story is probably just family myth. Haplotrees and SMPs. Yeah, just tells me I'm a RM269, which I know is a very generic one. So if anyone is able to decipher Y-DNA, then let me know how to do the website. Then let me know. Sister, thank you very much for becoming a member. Thank you very much. You didn't have to. I feel like it's ages since you've been on here, so it's great to see you.
What's that?
Cicero became a member on my channel.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I can check. I could check my. Okay, well, the closest member on Y11, the closest member. I won't give you his name or anything because I think that might. I don't know if that constitutes
Mhm.
anything that I shouldn't be sharing, but I can give you his tablet group. Where did I see that? Where did I see it? Oh my God! Discover haplogroup reports, maybe for something. Family matches. I think it's Family Finder matches. Okay, it's on the app of the phone, so you'll have to bear with it because it keeps trying to tell me to add me later. What are you on about? No, I don't care. I do not care. Just give me this guy's name again. Um, right, we'll leave it with the experts. Oh, come on, it's just so slow. Oh, it's because there's a sale on, so I keep getting this like buy now for the 30th of April. Um,
The garbage.
yeah. So this guy, no, that's not true.
The Murphy line in Cork City and Dublin, they were two separate lines altogether. If I was to make a
Cork line and
quick
who?
guess, Murphy's.
You've got the Murphys in Cork in County Cork are from Musgrave. Um,
Mm. But they're two completely different
what
lines
from the
altogether. There's just somebody I've seen in the comment section. Yeah, go
what they're
on.
saying that they're related to each other from the Wexford line.
No, well, he's not saying it per se. He's just saying the Murphy line in Cork City or Dublin City is a complete disaster. But they would be two completely different
Yeah.
lines
I mean,
altogether, from my interpretation.
yeah, they're. I mean, some websites claim they are related through heraldic links,
Uh,
but there's no evidence of that. Again, outside of DNA, I can't. Um,
Lads, we're on the last 10 minutes there, so if you guys have any questions or anything you want to expand on, definitely do it now. I know Caveman and Kevin and Fat Controller have no problems expanding there, that's for sure. Definitely enjoy your comments and stuff, and definitely taking notes of a lot of stuff that you guys are saying, especially genealogy, where I'm more in my field of expertise. Tomorrow, I'll be doing a presentation over on Patreon where I'll be covering the Scottish War of Independence. Well, I'm still on the introduction. I haven't even actually got into the Scottish War of Independence yet. I'm still on the introduction of it. But tomorrow over on Patreon, if you want to head on over to Patreon at Irish Medieval History, I am covering the Scottish War of Independence. But tomorrow I'm doing a presentation on King Edward I of England. Massive, huge subject tomorrow. But if you're interested in that, or just the Scottish War of Independence in general, definitely head on over to my Patreon. The presentations are about 20 quid, but you can always hop on over there just to support the channel anyway, from like 3 quid onwards. Or just have an old nosy. Definitely head on over to my Patreon, Irish Medieval History, and have an old nosy at that. And tell me what you think of it. Michal, any plans for this week or anything you're up to?
no, I'm just gonna keeping Facebook ticking over. I
What was it called?
I'm
I have to do a whole load of go on.
no, just that's just the plan is to get the Facebook sort of enough posts that they're scheduled that I can just sort of leave it to do its thing for a while I focus on the other projects that I've got going. But I just wanted to keep that going. So if anyone thinks that I've disappeared from all the socials, just keep an eye on Facebook because there's plenty of stuff being posted there daily. And yeah, they're that's really all I'm sort of focusing on at the minute. I've got some projects that are continuously on the background, but that's going to be a while before some of them see the light of day. Just unfortunately,
Happy days.
yeah.
Uh, I'm going to be doing a ton of collaboration actually this week with Mihal. So I'll be doing tons and tons and tons of collaborations with Mihal, to do with all the families and clans of Ireland. I'll probably just be starting off with the early medieval family branches and stuff, such as the Kennel Owen, Clan Coleman, and all that stuff. And I'll slowly just work through all the families in the early medieval Ireland. So I'm going to try to do as many collaborations as possible, this week and next week and so on and so forth. So that'll keep me busy for some time, especially doing the collaborations with Mihal. So we'll be doing tons and tons and tons of that this week. So definitely pay attention to that one. Um, just quickly looking at the what was it called?
Sorry for asking again, but would you
Comment
know
section there.
anything?
Go on.
Would you know anything about the MacGugans of Antrim? Would they be Dalphiatic? No, Antrim's not really Dalphiatic territory; it's Dalnaraja territory. So really, your king groups that you're looking at are the Dalnaraja and the Enial, because obviously the Enial expanded to that area later on. I do know that the MacGugans, there is a branch of MacGugans or MacQuigans or MacGugans, are the variations that exist in Tyrone, and they're part of the Enial, the Kinloan. I'm pretty sure the name exists in a few hotspots around Ulster, but they're the only ones that I'm pretty sure about. I don't know of any Antrim branches of the name. My knowledge sort of says that a lot of them, there's Derry and Tyrone are the two areas I know of the name. But none that. But like I say, if they're on Antrim, you're looking really at the Dalnaraja and the Enial. Dalphiatic is a little bit further down, mid East Ulster. Cicero is not Enial. No. to Gaelic to be
Cicero.
Yeah. Look, just because one line
I think
isn't
not
maybe
Gaelic
another
anymore.
line. Huh?
Is the email not Gaelic
breaking
anymore?
up.
No. Oh,
Well,
sorry.
not if
Is
they're
the
actually
Gaelic? They're not email anymore. No. Go on.
no the Enial are Gaelic if you go by Brian Lacey's sort of interpretation, and Gaelic as an ethnic group, not as a cultural group. Because obviously they
Jesus
are
Christ.
Gaelic, because they're speaking Gael, they're speaking Irish, they're in the Irish political world, they're in the so they are Irish. But yeah, it's just a little like I say, the Dalphiatic are the true Ulstermen, the true Gaels, the true everything. Everyone else
Jesus Christ.
listens to the Dalphiatic. I don't even think I am related to them either. So, but I just find them interesting.
In the UK. It's interesting.
In the UK, title Esquire, instead of Mr., I put Esquire at the end of my name, like Thomas Rue Esquire on my documentation. Yeah, and I've always wondered about the rank of gentleman or rank of nobility an Esquire sort of falls into, because you see them as written as Esquire or gentleman, especially during the plantation era of Ulster. Yes, Cicero, 'twas a mere jest. Yeah, Philip spends too much time arguing online to know what is a joke and what isn't a joke when it comes to ethnicities in Ireland. because so many people weaponize and actually believe it. But yes,
what was the last one that triggered me? I was short. Go on. Yeah. What was the last short that triggered me? I had a complete fucking. Don't get me wrong. Get me a lot of the times when I have a fit online, I work on it just so I can get those views up. So they do work. But I do have. I'm on the wrong account on Instagram. but it was a recent short, and Jesus, I could not get my head around it. I spent the day. I had to make a short of it, and I actually felt quite relieved after I made the short, to be honest with you. But I spent the full day not being able to get my head around. Oh yeah, that was it. The amount of people that bloody cannot get their head around king groups in Ireland, and when they hear about how Ireland functions, they're just like, this is the most barbarous thing ever because it doesn't function like centralized England. And I wouldn't mind, but during the golden age of Ireland, when we're producing so much amazing literature, somebody had written a comment going, to be honest with you, I don't, not, no offense, this is what he said, no offense, but I cannot tell the difference between this and Neolithic Ireland. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, do you know? And I spent the day, my brain could not digest this. And I ended up doing an entire rant about this. And the rant itself got a good few views. But yeah, I ranted out about 2 days ago. I had a good rant on Instagram about it. Ireland's Neolithic. And I break down the person's comments and I point out how what was it, early medieval Ireland wasn't Neolithic, but not just on top of that as well, which I had done in the original short. But what I did then on top of that was expand on top of that to show, look, this is early medieval Ireland. But you can see that even the fortifications of Ireland continue to develop into the High Middle Ages when you have the introductions of, the Romanesque style castles with the old moat baileys. You have the stone castles coming into Ireland with Trim Castle. And then by the time you get into the late medieval period and you have the whole Gothic designs that start to come into Ireland, like Kilkenny, very good example of a Gothic style that comes in around 1250, still in the High Middle Ages, but then it has that transition going into the late medieval period where you have Gaelic Taoiseachs in Ireland, chieftains in Ireland, constructing the likes of Bunratty Castle, these humongous keeps and fortifications in Ireland. So to turn around and refer to the Gaelic in the medieval period as barbarous and backwards, it's like, have you not been to Bunratty Castle? Like, that thing is constructed during the late medieval period, and that keep is absolutely just, fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And the economic finance that does produce, because it's defending the Shannon River, it brings in a whole load of trade from the Iberian Peninsula, such as wine and mead, so on and so forth. It allows the O'Briens to comfortably go on pilgrimage over to Rome. Like, you have to be in a very, very, very comfortable position to be able to go on pilgrimage. Never mind to go on pilgrimage during the 15th century. So it definitely shows that these people are not backwards and barbarous, that's for sure. You could actually make the argument that the O'Neills are barbarous and backwards, like, of course, up in the north of Ireland, because of the fact that they don't have the fancy clothing that we do down in the south. But, when it comes down to the south of Ireland, you definitely couldn't make that argument for sure. Right.
I think that's the end here as we've pushed 2 hours.
Yeah, we start to finish up there.
Yeah.
Any last notes there?
I'm just seeing here. It's the lowest rank. Esquire is the lowest rank. Okay. Someone's asking. We'll talk about. I suppose we could talk about what is time specifically for family groups, because you've got links to Argyll in 200 AD, Antrim 350 AD, Armagh 650 AD. We can talk about that. So that's a big time frame to sort of be talking about, especially when most of our named king groups start to appear in the 5th century, like the Owenocta and the Neil, but they do descend from other groups. So it's if your background is Mid Ulster, Dromore, what is your background, Philip? No, I'm not from Dromore. My family are from sort of, you're looking like the sleeve of Ring of Gullion, sort of, you're looking between Armagh, Newry, Banbridge, Dundalk, that sort of diamond shape would be my um, area. But Philip, your family's a bit of a mixture from Cork and
National. Oh, my
yeah.
mix. Oh, Jesus Christ. We had the DNA testing done recently. I am the Hayes of Limerick. That's how, like, even when I was a child and stuff, I'd be in Mallow and people would be asking me, oh, who are you related to? Are you related to the Hayes up in Fermoy and blah, blah, blah? And I'd be like, no, 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 no. Hayes of Limerick. And my DNA testing completely backed that up. Every single bastard DNA that's in Limerick, I am related to. I like it is not like 100% Gael whatsoever. It's literally a thing of like 20% English, 20% Gael, 20% Norman, 20% Scandinavian, 20% of it. We have a random Palestinian DNA in there as well from Jerusalem. It's insanely mixed. I was even saying that to Rachel as well. And it is true as well. Like when it comes down to most of the merchants and the traders and stuff of Limerick and Cork, I'm actually related to them. So a lot of the famous hazes of so and so, the traders and merchants from the 17th century onwards, I'm definitely related to them. So Hayes of Limerick is how a lot of people identified my family for ages. And what was it called? And I'm related to a lot of Hayeses that are up in Limerick as well. I'm related to. And then on my mother's side, they're from Sligo. And my mother had the complete opposite, where it was almost, I think, like, 98% or 99%. What was it called? Oh my God, what was it? Gaelic DNA. So Gael DNA on my mother's side, which was very funny because my mother was born in Manchester, but both of her parents are from Sligo. So although my mother's got a Manchester DNA, and a lot of people assume my mother's English, her parents are from Sligo, and her DNA ends up like almost 99%. What was it called? Gael DNA, except for this random Polish kind of Jewish DNA, which is in there, which popped up we're assuming it's around World War II that DNA got in there. Because my mom always talked about some some Polish Jewish, some Polish French Jewish DNA that popped up around World War II. So there is a wee bit of Polish DNA in there as well on my mother's side.
So
But that was absolutely amazing.
Palestinian, Irish, and Jewish ancestry. Maybe we should be sending you to the Middle East to fix all the problems. Just be like, I speak for everyone. I speak for everyone.
But that explains my because my nose. This is my mother's side of the nose, where she has this kind of weird, kind of Polish, Jewish kind of nose on her. So that's where I get my nose from. Like my whole face is complete bastardized of a mixture of bloody everything. But yeah, it's funny because everyone assumed my dad was the most Irish. And when, because he's from Limerick, like a big thick Limerick Cork accent on him. So everyone assumed my dad was the most Irish one. And in fact, he's just a mix of everything. Because pretty much everyone immigrated to Limerick, didn't they? And my dad married into them. Sure, it's a pretty mix of everything. And the one everyone assumed was the most English. My mom has zero English DNA in her. She just has a Manchester accent. So that's the end of that.
My mother's English. She is English. She's from Northern England, so I've got probably Danelaw. I've got Saxon. I've got Scottish probably on that side. Ancient Brythonic, Welsh, from all the history in that area. I've probably got a good mixture on that sort of side. And my father's family are just from that area I mentioned there in the southeast of Ulster and have been there for about fucking 10 million years. They were probably the first boys to stand there after the glaciers moved. Anyway, but we won't get too bogged down because we did say we were going 6 minutes ago before we asked Philip our questions.
Yeah, we'll start finishing up there.
So
I'll see you guys. Yeah, I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Anyway, if you're signed up for my presentation for tomorrow, that's over on my Patreon, Irish Medieval History. That presentation on Edward I, just before going into the Scottish War of Independence itself, that is starting Irish time at 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Irish time. That is starting tomorrow. And New York time, that is starting at 5 o'clock. Okay, so that's my presentation. Sign up over on Patreon, and I'll give you another link to there so you can go and watch it. I'll see you there, guys. Until then. Michal, any plans in the next few hours or so?
No, I'm going to bed, but apart from that,
Okay.
but yeah, I'll be live. Tom's us now. I'll be live on Wednesday for my members live, and then we will all be back on maybe Owen, hopefully Owen if he feels up to it, but if not, definitely Philip and I'll be back next Saturday. So
Happy days.
so we'll see you then. So until then, have a good night, everyone. Thanks very much for